Another important point to note in this Afghanistan story is India's assistance to terror-hit Afghanistan. It has been consistent, irrespective of which party has been in power in that country. But it has come at a cost. Indian citizens remain the target of terrorist groups who continue to receive support from Pakistan. The latest incident has cast a shadow of terror over the economic collaboration Beijing and New Delhi are planning. Remember, this abduction comes within days of reports that China and India will jointly work in rebuilding Afghanistan. Our next report looks at the shifting sands in the region and the impact this will have on Afghanistan.
During their recent informal dialogue, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Xi Jinping of China secured a major economic milestone with deep political implications. Both sides agreed to join hands for an economic project in Afghanistan. Not only does this decision signal a thaw between India and China, a partnership between both countries could do wonders for Afghanistan, a country that continues to suffer from terrorism. While the specifics are still being worked out, India and China are exploring their options in the areas of health, education and food security. An Indo-Afghanistan connectivity project that connects Afghanistan with India, China and Iran could be on the cards as well. While this is an exciting prospect for the region at large, a thaw between India and China has not gone down well in Islamabad. Pakistan and China have close ties. Pakistan is already in the dragon's net as China has pumped billions of dollars in the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor or CPEC. While India's opposition to this project is well known, both Beijing and New Delhi will be sidestepping CPEC to push their projects in Afghanistan.
How do the Chinese side manage to separate CPEC in terms of the symbolic and otherwise the very strong relationship with Pakistan, with and in fact potentially a much stronger relationship with India? Now this is going to be a conversation which the Chinese and the Pakistanis will have to do, and which brings to another one, that will that in any way impact on Pakistan's position not only towards China? I'm sure they're unhappy about this, but probably have no other choice.
As expected, Pakistan reacted sharply to the announcement from Wuhan, reminding China that it has stood by Pakistan in testing times. Pakistan's deep state, more specifically the military and the ISI, have always envied India's presence in Afghanistan. Pakistan's support to the Taliban has been well known. Despite efforts by the West to neutralize insurgents, the Taliban still remains openly active in 70% of the country. The insurgent group is believed to be behind a fresh wave of terrorist attacks in Afghanistan this year. Destabilizing Afghanistan works in the favor of Pakistan. The unrest ensures that Islamabad remains a player in Afghanistan. It also allows Pakistan to maintain a safe haven to hide its proxies or members of other terrorist groups. China must realize its investments will not shield its interests and citizens from the terrorist Pakistan breeds, and it would serve Beijing well to use its diplomatic heft in Islamabad to help stabilize Afghanistan. Bureau Report, WION.
Afghanistan is a land with many players. Just what do America, Russia, China and Pakistan have in common in that country? They all want the Taliban to join the peace process. They want to take part in elections which could even lead to their presence in government. So why is it that they all seem on different sides in Afghanistan? That's politics for you. The fact is that the Russians do not even want US forces to leave that country. That's what Zamur Kabulov, President Vladimir Putin's special envoy, told Interfax news agency in an interview in January last year. He said, and I quote, "As far as I know, Trump does not currently have any intentions to withdraw," which is logical because if in the current environment he decides to withdraw the contingent, then everything will collapse. That's the Russian view. Russia believes the presence of US troops in Afghanistan has distinct advantages. Russia does not need to send troops there. The US military presence will prevent the Taliban from expanding its presence. This may help Russia to steer the Taliban towards the idea of a political settlement. Russia is working through China and Pakistan. It has established communication with the Taliban. The Taliban says it will not promote Islamic radicalism in Central Asia, which is Russia's area of influence. Russia may not believe this, but dialogue enables them to keep tabs on the Taliban and influence its commanders and political figures. Next comes China. China has kept a low profile in Afghanistan, but recent reports say it is setting up a base in the Wakhan corridor for the Afghan army. This apparently is intended to help the Afghans police a corridor through which radicalized Uyghur Muslims could enter Xinjiang province in China and create mayhem. China has not indicated any public support for the Taliban but maintains links with them. Next comes the US. Donald Trump began with wanting to get out of Afghanistan, but his South Asia strategy paper last year beefed up US troop numbers in that country, enhanced the use of special forces and resumed airstrikes and intelligence operations. He said, and I quote, "Our nation must seek an honorable and enduring outcome worthy of the tremendous sacrifices that have been made. Second, the consequences of a rapid exit are both predictable and unacceptable. Third, and finally, I concluded that the security threats we face in Afghanistan and the broader region are immense." That explained the decision to set no deadlines for withdrawal of American troops. Instead, the focus shifted to outcomes on the ground. His former Secretary of State Rex Tillerson signaled what they wanted. He said, and I quote again, "The Taliban has a path to peace and political legitimacy through a negotiated political settlement to end the war." They want to talk to the Taliban. I quote again, "We stand ready to support peace talks between the Afghan government and the Taliban without preconditions." That's America for you. Pakistan. It borders Afghanistan. It sees itself as the final arbiter of who wields power in Kabul. This it seeks to achieve by backing a variety of groups, including the Taliban and the Haqqani network. There are also rumors that Pakistan has been backing the Islamic State in eastern Afghanistan, and some of the attacks in Kabul have been at Islamabad's instigation. Apparently, the Haqqani network is the key mover and shaker for Pakistan, supplying armed fighters to the Taliban and the Islamic State. But support for such groups comes at a price. Into various factions since the death of its leader Mullah Omar became public in 2015, and Pakistan's control is less than complete. Iran is another neighbor. It is on a different wicket. It has been providing arms, ammunition, food, fuel and sanctuary to the Taliban for many years now. Iran sees the Taliban as a useful proxy force to keep the Americans engaged. It wants to undermine the entire US effort and keep the Afghan government weak and dependent. But India is also a player in Afghanistan. What does India want? India does not want Afghanistan to revert to being a terrorist safe haven and a training ground as it did during the Taliban years. It does not want Pakistan to be the dominant influence in Kabul. Publicly, India has opposed the Taliban, although insiders say that India has steadily widened its contacts with the Taliban factions. India supports the US military presence in Afghanistan. India would like them to remain. The irony, of course, is that India, the subcontinent's biggest player, does not want to raise its stakes in Afghanistan. It is shrewdly preferring to aid and educate rather than anything remotely military. And many say that this is the wisest policy.